Hey guys, and welcome back to Just Ask Jason, our weekly devotional here at Berean. As usual, if this is at all useful to you, if this is a helpful video for you, we would love for you to subscribe, for you to like our pages and our post here and share it with your friends and family. It's actually really helpful to us. It helps get the word out about our church, helps get the word out about the various ministries that we offer, and it helps get some of our teachings disseminated out there in the public where they can be helpful to some people. So if you have the time, please like, please share, please subscribe, please do all that stuff because it really does help us a lot, and hopefully it's helpful to others around you as well. Now, here's the Devo. Welcome back, guys, and this week we're going to be talking about money, because money talks, and the Bible talks about money. In fact, Jesus talks a lot about money. I mean, a lot. So today we're going to talk about money, and while I'm not going to give a ton of ideas here, a ton of interpretations, I'll give a little bit. For the most part, I'm just going to be quoting what Jesus says and then giving you a little bit of context so that hopefully if you participate in our Thursday night group, then you can have a little bit of discussion around some of these teachings. And if you don't participate in our Thursday night group, then maybe it just sparks some thoughts for you personally or some thoughts that you can express with your family or with Christian friends. So here it is, Just Ask Jason, What Jesus Says About Money edition. Blessed are the poor, maybe in spirit. Both Luke and Matthew say, blessed are the poor. Luke ends with poor. Matthew adds the phrase in spirit. They're both fair translations of the exact same words in Hebrew. And when Jesus gave this sermon, it was probably in Hebrew or maybe in Aramaic, probably not in Greek. So, blessed are the poor is our first teaching about money. Our second one, give to the one who begs from you, which is an interesting teaching. Augustine famously noted, the early church father Augustine famously noted, Jesus said to give, but he never said how much or what to give. Augustine's point is, yeah, you should give to the one who asks from you, but be smart about it. If the person asking from you has a coke addiction, it's probably not a good idea to give them $1,000. Be intelligent about how you give. On the other hand, though, Jesus doesn't give any qualifiers here. So is Augustine really right? Discuss amongst yourselves. Give us this day our daily bread, which likely derives from Proverbs 30:7-9, which says, 2 things I ask of you, let me have them before I die. First, help me never to tell a lie. And second, give me neither poverty nor riches. Give me just enough food in correct portion. For if I grow rich, I may deny you and say, who is the Lord? But if I am too poor, I may steal and thus profane your holy name. So give us this day our daily bread, probably derives from Proverbs 30:7-9. Another teaching is lay up treasures in heaven. Heaven is used as a synonym for God's kingdom. Paradise is the word that's usually used for the location or separate realm that we refer to as heaven, but the terms are somewhat interchangeable. In this case, though, Jesus is probably talking about the kingdom of God, the place where God rules, the expression on earth of God's power through the church. So that's what we're talking about here. Lay up treasures in God's kingdom. Our primary concern should be how we invest our time and resources for the cause of God's kingdom, right? Is there anything else to that passage? Well, maybe. How do you do that is another question you should ask. Ask and you shall receive is another teaching that has to do with money, right? But whoa, really? Are there no limits? Because Jesus doesn't state any limits here. I'm going to let you sort this one out. If you're lucky enough to go to our Thursday night group, then I'm going to pass my notes along to Russ, so he'll have at least my take on it. You may or may not agree. Give to Caesar what is Caesar's. Give to God what is God's. The context of this is Jesus is asked whether or not it is moral for a Jew to pay taxes, because they say, well, Caesar says he's king, but we know that God is king, so should we really give Caesar taxes? And Jesus' response is, give to Caesar what is Caesar's, give to God what is God's. So he doesn't just touch on taxes, he also touches on the, quote, taxes that you pay to God, your tithe. Now, one of the questions that comes up in the New Testament is, are we still supposed to tithe? Is the 10% thing still a thing? Should it be more? Should it be less? Does it depend on the person? Again, discuss amongst yourselves. Although it is an important thing to note that the exact phrase or the exact idea of a 1/10 tithe is not found anywhere in the New Testament. So if you're going to make an argument for it, you have to go back to the Old Testament, and that can get sticky really quickly. Another teaching from Jesus is go and sell everything and give to the poor. He did give this commandment only to one specific individual that we only know as the rich young ruler. But there's a paraphrase, I don't know who originally said it, and again, I'm just paraphrasing, that I really like and I think is important when you're reading this passage. Those who breathe a sigh of relief too quickly at this command, or the fact that this command is not normative, are likely the ones that Jesus would still say it to today. So if you hear the phrase, go and sell everything and give to the poor, and it gives you a massive knot in your stomach, and then you realize, well, Jesus only said it to one person, so I don't necessarily have to do it, and you just feel like the weight of the world is off your shoulders, that might indicate to you that you value your physical property a little bit too much, and you need to increase your generosity. But again, I guess discuss amongst yourselves. That might be one that you should discuss amongst your family members anyways. Now, I'm not going to go through specific stories of Jesus' ministry that have to do with money. We hit on a lot of the teachings, but not all of them. I want to hit on a few parables, though. It's just another form of teaching. It's a lot like a fable. It's a story that may or may not be based on true events that has a moral. And Jesus would tell these stories all the time to make different points about like what heaven was like or whatever. It was a really common way for rabbis to teach. First parable is the rich fool, which is found in Luke chapter 12. Basically, this guy has a huge bumper crop. He's a farmer. He's a plantation owner. I know that's not like an okay word anymore, but he would have been. He would have had a lot of servants, maybe even a lot of slaves. He made a lot of money off of making crops, and he has a giant bumper crop, and he decides, you know what, I'm just going to store a bunch of this in giant grain silos. I'm going to sell a bunch, and I'm never going to have to work again. But then that night, he dies and leaves all of his material wealth on the earth and doesn't get to enjoy any of it. Now, here's some important things for you to note when you're trying to interpret this parable. First of all, the guy is a Jew who is expected to tithe the first fruits of his field. The first crop that he harvests, he should tithe a tenth of it. And he doesn't. He doesn't say anything about doing that. Additionally, Jews were expected to be generous towards the poor. That's a really common teaching not only of Jesus, but also of the prophets. And he says nothing about the poor. He lived in a world where estimates show that 70 to 80% of people were living on subsistence wages, meaning they made enough money to take care of like their daily needs, like to pay for food and keep a roof over their head, but they had no money left over to save or to improve their lot in life. They couldn't afford to buy luxuries. They couldn't afford to advance themselves. They were stuck financially, and there was nothing they could do to help it. 70-80% of people were like that. And he did nothing to help them. For context, in the U.S., only about 52-ish% of people live paycheck to paycheck, and many of those people are actually very well-to-do. They just have horrible spending habits. So we definitely have a poverty issue in the U.S., but it was nowhere near as bad as ancient Israel, and this guy still thought of no one but himself. Go figure. The Unjust Steward in Luke 16 is another one. The SparkNotes version is a steward or a property manager cheats his master, cheats his boss out of a ton of money, and gives it away to influential friends by forgiving debts that he shouldn't have forgiven. When he loses his job because he's bad at his job, he has a ton of new friends that he just saved a bunch of money that are now willing to offer him a job and to make sure that he retains his high place in society. And you think Jesus would tell this story and say, don't be like that person, you should be honest, but that's actually not what he does. He ends with a really weird statement. After telling this whole story, not really commenting on the morality of it, he says, I say to you, make friends for yourselves by means of, this is the exact phrase, unrighteous mammon, so that when all is gone, they will receive you into eternal dwellings. Now, that word mammon is just a word for money. So he says by means of unrighteous money, but that phrase is a Aramaism, a idiom in the language Aramaic, that basically means any form of money, because all money is in some ways unrighteous. There's nothing naturally good about it, so it's not righteous, it's unrighteous, right? So he says, make friends for yourselves by means of whatever money you have, not necessarily just money made illegally. Okay, I hope you don't have any money made illegally. But he's just saying, make yourself friends by means of any money that you might have. But then pay attention to that last statement. When it's all gone, when do you lose all your money? Well, when you die. They will receive you into eternal dwellings. That phrase, eternal dwellings, is a pretty clear reference to paradise, to wherever the dead go after earth, or even to the new heavens and the new earth when God comes back and restores all things and we live in paradise on earth with him. They will receive you, to use an English way of saying it, they will receive you into heaven. The idea is use your money to benefit others, to bring others closer to Jesus, to bring others closer to God. And then when you die, when you have no money left, you will have a legacy of dozens or hundreds or thousands of people that your money has helped to grow closer to Jesus. This is essentially a parable that is teaching, well, invest in the kingdom. I know I said I want to do interpretation for you, but that one is weird, and I just kind of felt the need to give you a break on that. And last of all, we have in Matthew 25, the parable of the talents. Now, it's important to remember here that talents, the phrase talents, in this context refers to a type of money. In modern terms, we might call it the parable of the $1,000 bills. That might be a fair way to idiomatically translate it. But here's how it goes. A rich man gives various amounts of money or various amounts of talents to 3 different servants to invest them while he is gone. The master leaves to invest their money, make a profit, and then when the master comes back, they are entrusted with even more responsibility because they've shown themselves to be worthy servants. The last one digs a hole, buries his money, and doesn't invest any of it. And when the master comes back, he digs it up and says, "Hey, master, I kept your money safe." And the master says, "No, I gave this to you because you know that I was entrusting you to make a profit, and you did nothing with it. You just sat on it. You didn't use your money to benefit your master." And yes, this parable is literally about money. I've heard it preached so many times where like, God has given you talents. And it's like, no, this parable, it can be applied that way, but what it's really about is money. God has given you money. Are you investing it for the good of your master? There's a lot of different areas that can be applied. How can you invest your money for the good of your master? How can you be like the first 2 servants and not like the last one? Now, I'll finish here. I know we've been going through it at kind of a sprint. I'll finish here with 5 principles about money from New Testament scholar Dr. Craig Blomberg. Now, Dr. Craig Blomberg wrote a book called Neither Poverty Nor Riches. I think I got that title close. If you look up Craig Blomberg, Blomberg, and then Neither Poverty Nor Riches, it should pull this book up. It's fairly popular, published in 1999. You can also find videos of him lecturing on it at Trinity Evangelical Divinity School. But he gives these 5 principles about money that I think are pretty insightful. The first one is material resources are good gifts from God that are meant to be enjoyed. And that's why God wants everyone to have at least a little. So we can see throughout the New Testament and the Old Testament that God intends for his people, for his church, and for his miracles to result in everyone having some amount of physical blessing. Maybe it's not a lot. Maybe it's not even enough, but he expects everyone to have at least a little. It's not the big point of the Bible, but it's one of those little sub-points that you see in there. Material resources are also one key common way in which people's hearts are turned away from God. That's the second principle. So first principle, money and physical resources, they're a good thing. They're a gift from God. God wants everyone to have at least a little bit. But second, material resources are also one key common way in which people's hearts are turned away from God. They become idols. Third is related to the second. one big major way to avoid money turning you away from God is to be extremely generous. If you're generous, then you're putting God first and money second or third or fourth or fifth, somewhere further down where it belongs. So being extremely generous is one way to fight back against money becoming an idol in your life. Fourth, there are extremes of excess and luxurious living that are by their very nature sinful. Now, Blomberg, everywhere that I've seen, has not given any specific examples. He's not like, well, if you have this kind of car, you're sinning. Instead, he just says this probably depends on what country you're living in, on the specific person and God's calling on their life, on how much money they make, on how they make that money. These are all things that you should consider. But ultimately, in most cases, you know where that line is for you. If God has placed on your heart that you are living in a way that is sinful, that is not the way that he wants you to live, that you're spending too much money on yourself and not enough on others, then, well, fix it, because there are certain standards of living that are by their nature sinful. God knows where that line is, and if you're honest, you probably do too. The fifth and final principle from Dr. Craig Blomberg is spiritual discipleship and material stewardship, that's just a fancy way of saying what you do with your money, are inextricably linked. If you're a mature Christian, it'll be reflected in the way that you handle your money. This is a direct quote from him. There's no such thing as a saved person who gives no gift of any kind to any person ever. If you never spend any time, any resources, any money on anyone but yourself, you need to reevaluate your relationship with Jesus, because that's just not what God teaches. I know that's harsh, and if it hurts a little bit, well, good, because I'd rather it hurt now than hurt later. Anyways, there's Jesus' teachings on money and 5 principles from New Testament scholar Dr. Craig Blomberg. I hope that that's helpful. I hope there's a lot to discuss, so I'll let you get to it. I'll see you back here next week, I hope. Bye.